Are you relocating to Dallas and thinking about leasing? I've done several videos about leasing in the DFW area because we're different than any place in the country. First off, I want to start off with things I've said in other videos. In the Dallas Fort Worth area specifically, I can't speak for the rest of Texas, but Dallas Fort Worth specifically, only 1% of homes here have refrigerators, washers, and dryers included in the lease. 10% have a refrigerator only. So if you're coming to Dallas expecting you're going to have all those appliances, that's not the case. In apartments, you're always going to have a refrigerator. Sometimes you'll have washer and dryer included. And it's not as expensive to rent the washer and dryer. The refrigerator, I'm not sure because I've never had a client that went out and rented one. Typically, they'll go buy one off Facebook Marketplace. But typically around here, there's some companies like Azuma and I think Appliance Warehouse, some others, where they'll rent a pair of washer and dryers for about $50 a month. So, but if I'm paying $50 a month, that's $600 in a year. I'm probably going to be looking at buying some lower end washer and dryer. The other thing that you want to know is that with apartments here, if you're renting from a complex owned by a large property management company, I won't name any of them, but you can always DM me on YouTube or wherever you happen to see this video. The large property management companies have several lawsuits over disparate treatment. Sorry, sometimes I mess up. Hope you don't mind. I'm real. So, and what that comes down to is they have to treat everyone the same. I do a lot of relocations, and I've had some clients that wanted to sign a 1-year lease and then ask for them to put a clause in that they can back out at 6 months with no penalty. Big apartment companies cannot do that because of the disparate treatment lawsuits. Also, when it comes to income, you need to make typically, this is general, you need to make at least 2.5 to 3 times the monthly rent and income. I'm talking about apartments specifically. And you're going to have to be able to prove that income. Now, I helped my daughter rent a place down in Central Texas. And because I'm self-employed and I don't use a CPA, I use a tax person. Because I use a CPA, they would not consider my tax returns. So I write them off. But if you have certain amount of money times the rent, this is for a smaller complex, smaller management company, then they can use that to see that you have enough assets to cover the rent. And when we're renting a single family home in Dallas, generally it's a minimum of 3 times the monthly rent and income before taxes. Sometimes owners are going to expect you to provide tax returns. If you're like me and you don't enjoy paying taxes, you write everything off you can that's legally able to write off. I want to throw that out there because I only write off things I can legally write off. So that may preclude you from being approved. Now, one way I help clients when they're in that situation like myself, I have them provide at least 6 months of bank statements. Now, this is going to vary from owner to owner. I can't state to you this is going to be the case for every owner because every owner is different. I know when I have properties on the market, I encourage my owners to talk through this before we put it on the market. Typically, they'll look at 6 months of bank statements. And many times, there are minimum credit requirements for both apartments and single-family homes. If you're looking for a lower deposit, it used to be the case that in apartments you could get in for a few $100s. I have seen cases where it's a full month's rent or more. So that's going to vary from management company to management company. But on single-family homes, I can guarantee you, in most cases, if your credit score, and this ranges, if it's under 640, many times you're going to need double security deposit. There's some owners that require credit scores in the 700s. when I'm working with a client, I ask them where their credit is generally. I ask the agent on the other end, if it's not my own listing, hey, what is the credit score range your client's looking for? Anything specific? The other thing is, I've had someone recently that made application, and they failed to inform me that they had a charge off where they failed to pay rent at a prior property that was several years ago. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. If it shows up on their credit report, that's going to be shown to the owner of the property. In 99% of cases, that's going to be automatic decline for you. You may have to look at a second chance property. What's that mean? Well, it's probably not going to be the most desirable place that you're going to want to live. That's all I can say in that regard. So if you do have, and having a letter stating that you're working on it, you're disputing it, means nothing. We need to see where it's paid off. And if it has been paid off, the owner may still ask for extra money. Like in the case of lower credit scores, who may ask for extra money. If you've never rented before, the landlord may ask for extra deposit up front. And typically with good credit, it's at least 1 month's rent as security deposit. If it's lower than 640, in most cases, you're going to see them ask for double security deposit. I had one client many years ago, I can say this now, you had to pay 13 months of cash up front because they had never paid their rent on time. That's the absolute extreme, but that can happen. So when you're talking about moving and leasing a place, yes, it is difficult to lease if you don't have good credit, good income. You need to have good rental history. If you don't have rental history, expect to pay more. If you have a pet, there are breeds that are on the forbidden list, and that's not because the people don't like animals. It's because their insurance company will not insure certain breeds of dog, any aggressive breed of dog. Some could be Grand Pyrenees, some can be other animals. It's just, that's on a case by case. I always talk with the owner's agent, run that by them. So just be prepared for that. Another thing, when you call and ask about safe location, just know that's not something agents can talk about. There's many things that we're restricted on. So you can always ask, you can always reach out to me and say, hey, Darrell, what are agents restricted from talking about? There's the deadly sins put out by HUD, and we're subject to that. We can't talk about those. But I thought I'd throw that in. If you have any questions, if you're thinking of relocating to the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you're renting, I hope this was educational to you. Feel free to reach out to me. All my contact information is at the end of this video. See you next time. Feel free to reach out. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Talk to you later.